Hello, hello, everybody. I am Mattleship, and with me here, as always, is my co-host Bransformers, and we are the blockbuster host of the Socially Awkwards podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the current state of mental health in the U.S., and I just want to go over a wild stat for you, Brands. Are you ready for this stat?
Yeah, I'm ready. Hit me with it.
All right. This is a pretty serious stat. 42% of teenagers experience sadness or hopelessness. 32% have an anxiety disorder, and 22% seriously consider unlifing themselves. Half of all mental conditions begin by the age of 14. 75% start before the age of 25. These numbers have been climbing significantly since 2014, with a big jump after the year 2020. What do you think are some of the big reasons why there is such a mental health crisis among teenagers in this country today?
Well, I'm going to pick on some really obvious
Yeah,
options.
right.
The internet slash social media. And it should not be a surprise to anybody. And I think that anybody would say this. And just because it's cliche doesn't mean it's not true. I really do think that social media and the internet they've really widened the world that we all belong to, the world that we all exist in. And so it's no longer just a small tribe or a small group or your own family that you're thinking about all these like societal, social sort of things that you can get anxiety about and depression and all sorts of mental health issues. But yeah, it really widens it. There's also, I also have this idea that sort of like, and it's not my idea, so don't let me take that kind of credit for it. But but the more you're exposed to the possibility of certain mental health issues being out there, sometimes the more that affects you. And that's not to explain away. Yeah, I'm not trying to like. I don't want to minimize it being sort of like a what's it called when you take a pill, but the effect is in your mind.
Placebo effect?
Placebo, yes, but I do
Yeah.
think there is a possibility of some placebo effect by us constantly seeing so much. Like we're all speaking about it, which is good thing, but I think there's also a double edged sword where having it constantly in your face. Like I remember like on TikTok there was a while that my feed was just full of nothing but people saying that they had ADD, like self-diagnosed ADD,
Right.
and it got me to a point where like I seriously consider, like, I think I actually do have ADD or ADHD or adult ADD or whatever the right way to say that acronym
Right.
now
Right.
is nowadays. I think I actually do have it to some degree, but when I'm sitting on TikTok and I'm watching these short form videos, it's like the symptoms that I have that relate to this go up, like it feels like tenfold. And so it's really hard to tell what is sort of being magnified by like social media and the presence and everybody talking about it. And then me sitting there watching it, absorbing it versus how much is authentic and what I'm really dealing with, if I were to set all those things aside. But I could dig in and find other things, but that's what jumps out to me right away.
No, I agree with you. Social media, I think, is huge. I think one of the reasons, I think they've already come up with one of the reasons why I think 2014 is important here, as far as, the stats going up on mental health crisis within the teenagers, is that is really, I think, around the time. If I'm correct, I think that's when they start Generation Alpha. And the reason why they do that is because that's right around the time when everybody is starting to be on social media. And TikTok, I think, was right around that time. I think when it started either, getting created or getting big. I think that there's a lot of truth to the social media aspect. Obviously, since 2020, we do know that that's probably what the pandemic did, and people not being able to leave their houses. Well, I mean, they could leave their house, but you know what I mean? They couldn't really do their regular life. That probably affected a lot of people. I know it affected me. I think you and I had talked about it before, that it affected you. I mean, even people who didn't have any signs of mental health issues, I think it affected. And so I think that was huge. Amongst teenagers, though, I just, like you said, I mean, you hit it the nail on the coffin there. Is is the fact that it's social media. And social media, I mean, I don't think it's regulated correctly. I don't know if it ever will be regulated correctly. It really just depends on a lot of different things. And I think that at first, like anything new, the government and other people just probably didn't know, how to, or what, just kind of, I'm sure this was like this when TV was first brought, up. But TV is regulated, right? And that is the difference, I think, a lot of people. So, the FCC regulates what you can have on TV. There's the whole censorship department about like what you can say. You can say different things on network or on cable news than you can do, or on cable channels than you can do on network channels. And then you have streaming, which pretty much anything goes. You can pretty much do anything on streaming. And I think that's why a lot of people are going there. But social media, like you said, it makes it so that you're no longer being able to just talk to your friends. You're talking to everybody, and people can influence other people very quickly, and it becomes burdensome and it becomes a problem. And like you said, if there are people out there talking about it enough, you might think you've got it, right? You might think, "Oh shit, I've got what that is." It's the same way like I think we discussed a few weeks back about direct to consumer marketing with drugs, like prescription drugs, and how all of a sudden these people think that that's what they have because they keep seeing these commercials, and then they go to their doctors and ask for these things, and their doctors are like, "Well, what are your symptoms?" Like things like that. And I think that's yeah, I think it's big. It's sad that it's happening with the younger generation. You hope. I'm not sure what the correlation is with violence, with school violence, or anything like that. I would imagine that there's some correlation there, but I don't know the numbers. But it's difficult, and I think that the younger generation, it's going to be tough, I think, from here on out. I mean, don't you think? I mean, it's going to be real tough for them unless there is some kind of way to regulate these things, and there will be pushback against that, I'm sure, from big companies and things like that. But do you think that there should be better regulation, or do you think it's just more up to the consumer?
I think I lean more in the direction of up to the consumer, but I do recognize and respect the position of regulation. And there might be a role for regulation in here, but the internet is there's something so precious about it, about the freedom and autonomy that we have access to. We have access to so much information. And that's, as we're saying, that's another example of a double-edged sword. But I would always rather have more information than less information. And I think that maybe that even works for opinions. I'd rather hear more opinions rather than less opinions. But I don't, but there is a case to be made that, even biologically, are we even designed to handle that much information or that many opinions at once? And there's a fair chance that maybe our brains aren't even built to be able to handle like these amounts of like anecdotal data, but in the hundreds of thousands that are just coming at us, and like being unable to really properly sift through it and separate what's useful and what's not. And also these things they get in our heads and they affect us. So yeah, I mean, like my personal opinion, I am not for regulation as much as I'm for, I don't know, what could it be? Personal accountability. And what does that look like? Like some sort of like training or something. I don't really know how the role of training fits into the internet. Maybe we can talk about that. But maybe awareness, awareness
Yeah.
campaigns about the risks, and the proper ways of dealing with these things to basically use the internet responsibly, right? So it's like caffeinated drinks. It's like we should drink caffeine responsibly. It doesn't mean that there aren't kids out there who aren't chugging, 10 Red Bulls tonight, while they're playing Call of Duty. And that is a problem.
Right.
But I'm just very hesitant to go further in the field of in the direction of regulation. But it's close because I can see the trade-offs.
Yeah, I get you. The it is a fine balancing act that you have to play there. And other things are regulated. But I do get the point of where not only is it difficult to regulate just the internet with everything that's out there, but you have to have I think the biggest thing is you should that if there is something happening and it leads to something, whether it's suicide or some kind of violent act or whatever it is, uh, they do know that. I do remember hearing that in one of the lawsuits or civil suits or whatever they were talking about with TikTok, and the CEOs of TikTok literally came out in the courtroom and they said, "We know that this is causing problems with teens." And so, it's increasing mental health issues and whatever else is out there. And so it's like you should be able to take accountability, especially if you know. And I think these places are going to know. But I do agree with you. I don't really think people should be able to make their own decisions and they should be able to do what they want. Some people can't handle it, but unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. That's just the price of being a human being. Hopefully, it's not going to be too much of an issue going forward as far as making things worse. I would like things to get better. I'd like these numbers to go down. I don't remember, and maybe I should have looked. I went to junior high and high school basically in the late 90s. I graduated in 2001. You were right around that time too. But I don't really remember a lot of issues as much as I feel like I hear them now in school. And I also don't know what schools are doing. I don't know, and I don't know how much they're responsible for things. So it's a tough situation because people always want to put blame on somebody or something. And often it's usually the wrong thing or the wrong person. And it's just where everybody directs it. But yeah, social media, I think it can be really dangerous, but at the same time, I think it could be good too. I think there's a lot of things that it can help with. And, I think we're going to get more into it. I don't want to get too much into the whole social media aspects. I think we are going to get more into that in a little bit. What I
Well,
want to do is sorry, go ahead.
if I can just, yeah, if I just want to say one thing, because while you were talking, you made me think about like what does the future hold? Because I can see the obvious negative track where things like if we're here right now in 2025, like what are things gonna look like in 2030? What are they gonna look like in 2035? And we just it's easy to imagine them getting worse and worse. But it's also I think it's possible, like just to paint a possible utopian scenario, is that it could be like we're in the Wild West still and then moving forward maybe we'll start going more towards a stabilization where we'll see a growth in like responsible usage or we'll reach some sort of like equilibrium with like how humans and the internet all sort of coexist where things won't be so chaotic and so like the wild west like how they are right now. And so maybe we do have a more utopian future where internet is everywhere but we coexist with it in a way that doesn't like damage our mental health constantly to the numbers that they are now. So that's my
Yeah,
hope.
that is a good hope, and we should probably mention that the polarization of politics right now is probably also contributing because people get on and whether they're for one side or the other, and then that's just going to add to like mental health issues. Like if you're somebody who doesn't agree, and then you get in these little spats or like these little internet fights or whatever, or you trolled or whatever it is. I think that's obviously a contribution. So I do think that if politics can get back to a simpler, more center state in this country, I do think that that would help with the mental statistics and all that stuff.
I agree. Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the workplace. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about that is because there was a 2024 survey that indicated that around half of all workers feel burned out, with nearly 80% experiencing emotional exhaustion or feeling used up at the end of the workday. Over 75% of US workers have experienced emotional distress due to work pressures, and more than 80% report experiencing workplace stress. Many workers report that emotional distress or burnout is severe enough to impact their ability to perform their jobs well, and nearly 45% are actively looking for new jobs because of burnout. Let's talk about this for a second. Do workplaces, I think I know where you're going to land on this because I probably land the same way. Do workplaces need should they be responsible for somebody's mental health? I mean, the answer here is probably no for the most part, right?
Yeah. I just want to think deeply about this.
Yeah, and don't
Should they
do,
be?
don't go too crazy because I think we're going to get into a point in a minute where we are going to agree the other way. Because I don't want people to think that we're like, oh,
Yeah.
the worker. But we're going to get
Yeah.
into that in a second. I just thought I should kind of pose that question, and I feel like
Well,
it's the same as the last question. It
it's
really is up to them.
it's that I don't think they should be responsible for maintaining good mental health for everybody who works there. But I also think that they can be 100% responsible for really negative mental health that can sometimes happen to people who work at that company. So I do think that they can bear some responsibility for negative outcomes, but they don't have to be responsible for always cultivating the best outcomes because at the end of the day, they're just a business and the people are people, and each person sort of has to be the CEO of their own happiness. And if and in a workplace ideally shouldn't exist if people are autonomous enough to, or if they have enough respect over their own mental health, and that company doesn't cultivate that environment, then they should leave. In an ideal world, they should leave, and the company wouldn't be able to stay afloat because they wouldn't be able to find workers that would sustain it. And so that's like the free market world working as we all hope it would, but it doesn't always work that way. But that's kind of where I land on the mental health thing. So it's like a yes and no. Probably more no. The way you phrase the question, it's easy for me just to go with a no
Right,
for now,
right.
though.
And
We'll
I
get into
phrased
it.
it that way for kind of that reason. I will say that the last time that I quit a job, I went to my boss and I was like, "Hey, I'm the chief executive officer of my own happiness and I'm getting the f- out of here." No,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
say
do that.
that.
I didn't do that. No.
That's a
I
great
would have
line, though.
liked to. I
I like
like the
that.
CEO of happiness. Like I'm the CEO of
Yeah.
my own happiness, man. That's who I am. I like that. Um, Here's the thing where I think we'll also agree with and where it's more for the workers. If you've got half of the workers feeling like they're burned out and 80% experiencing emotional exhaustion, then I do feel like employers should probably have some type of programs or something there to help them. I don't know what it is. Whether it's just making the work more efficient, really you're going to have to probably talk to your employers, right? Or your employees, sorry. And they're going to have to say what is causing the burnout or what is causing the exhaustion or whatever it is. But if you are a company and you have this many workers feeling this way, that can't be good for business. So I do feel like that I don't know what it is they need. I'm not a professional in this matter. I don't know. Maybe you might have a better idea, but do you feel like, I mean, obviously that's going to affect their bottom line. So they need to do something, right? To kind of, you know, counteract these
Yeah.
effects of burnout and all this emotional stress and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this line before. I've heard it as like maybe a cliche, or maybe it's been used uh manipulatively manipulatively. But I've heard the line that people don't really quit jobs, they quit managers. And I think, or they quit management, or they quit whatever X, which basically means you're quitting people. You're not quitting the job itself. And I agree with that. I think that every job that I've had, almost every job, 90% of the jobs I've had that I've felt burned out, or I really didn't like the job for one reason or another, it usually came down to the people at the job that was making it miserable. Even if the job itself was factory work where you're just doing the same, you're punching a hole in a rivet, 1,000 times a day. Granted, that's not great work. It's not fulfilling, but for some people, they can find fulfillment in it. I don't think I'm one of those personality types where I easily find fulfillment doing that. But I do recognize there are people who exist who can do that and put in their 9 to 5, kind of 40 hours a week, and kind of feel pretty good about that. And I think that that is, yeah. So I think that for that type of person, if you're getting burnt out, it's probably because either coworkers, management, or how the company is run in general, decisions that are made from the top down from the people that don't have to always be made that way. So yeah, I mean, like, I feel like I'm getting away from the original. What was the original
No, no,
phrase that you were questioning?
actually, you've brought up a good point, and I like that. And that's the fact that, like, really is that would probably be the better question that I should have asked. Is it more the employers around these people that are making them cause that, or is it the job themselves? And like you said, I do think that it's probably more of the people they're working with or management or whatever it is, and it's not necessarily the job. I think that that would probably be the case with most people. Is that's what they're going to say, and it it is tough because, if you work for a big company and you've got a CEO at the top who is not really paying attention to anything other than the bottom line, then, I don't know where you start with that. I think it does start with a good company CEO though. I think those chief executive officers have to be really good at making sure that their employers like to do their jobs. I don't know if you've watched Undercover Boss at any time, but it's kind of like one of those things where if those people were like that, and I know it's a show and they probably put on a show up there, for themselves. And who knows if they're not actually like that just might be the only time that they're really cool, right? And then, at the end of the show, they usually give them some extra stuff, the employees they met and But if you do have people out there like that, and I'm sure there are quite a few that actually care about their, their workers and want to make sure that, and we could probably get into poverty and stuff like this because that's going to change the way you think about your job and things. And I guess I would point out Mark Cuban, who I remember reading a story about how he found out that some of his workers needed Medicaid or were on food stamps. So he went to, I don't know, it was probably maybe his chief financial officer, I don't know, whoever else, and said, what do we have to give these guys so they don't have to depend on extra assistance? And then they found a number and that's what he gave everybody. And so I like hearing stories like that, people out there who actually care. And, they realize that not everybody is the same in their business. And some people are making it, some people are struggling, and so I think if we get more of that kind of thing, I do agree with you. I do think it's more of the people than the job itself. I don't think there's too many jobs out there. I mean, unless you're like a rocket scientist, but you got to go to school for that, right? Like most jobs, like especially menial tasks and things like that, just regular mundane jobs like Burger King or something, you know, how much of the burnout or the stress is also not just employees or the job, but how much is it just in your mind being like, I shouldn't be here because it's Burger King, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of goes with the whole mental health thing too, is it's like it doesn't help if you've already started off thinking that this isn't the job you should be at. So I would also say that part of it is the employee themselves, making things worse than they should be sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we all have to grapple with the new idea, like the new age idea that we're all destined for more than most of the time what we're doing right now. Um, and that's probably not healthy for everybody. And I think I struggle with this too, where I've worked jobs where there was a stress point where I was like, I know I can do more than this. Now, there is something to be said for recognizing potential within yourself and then also recognizing that you're not living up to that, because I think that is also a disservice to humanity if you're not fulfilling the potential, everything, if you're not being everything you could be, right? Not to sound like, the military or whatever, but
Right, right.
I do think there is a sense there is this great, like, that is one of the things I love about like sort of the American idea is like try to be everything you can be because you can be more. But that is another example of that double-edged sword where you if you're always comparing yourself, like, we know it's bad to compare yourself to the Joneses who live next door, but now if you're comparing yourself, if like the Joneses are in your head and it's just always you 5 years from now, and you'll never actually be that thing because it's always going to progress, higher up on on this infinite ladder that goes up into the sky and past Pluto, and you're just never going to climb that ladder, then it's like there's a healthy way to view that and there's a really, really unhealthy way to view that. And I think that unhealthy way ends up getting to a lot of people. And I know it's gotten to me, especially, yeah, you're working at a job and you're like, I should be doing more. When in reality, you can say, like, I think just recognizing that you're on the ladder is a really great way to be happy about. I think that being happy about where you are comes down to being happy with the trajectory that you're on, and not necessarily the actual rung of the ladder you're on. Like, just try to put yourself on a ladder that's headed to a spot that you want to be, and be happy that you're on it. And every rung is just another point of happiness, but don't necessarily be happy. Don't be sad because you're not finished climbing this ladder, because it is an infinite ladder. Not to start sounding preachy, but
No,
that's my view of like happiness is like, well, I'm just going to be happy that I'm on it because it's pointed in a direction that I actually want to go. And that's good enough for me right now.
I think that Bobby McFerrin said it best, and when he said, "Don't worry, be happy," right?
Yeah.
Now, I think I want to talk about overthinking a little bit because what you were talking about kind of reminded me of like people overthinking things. And that's a big part of mental health, I feel like, is your brain is overloading you with all of these extra thoughts that you don't necessarily need. And I just want to know, like, I don't really have any tips or tricks on how to not overthink. Um, there are times where I think the best thing is to just keep busy, right? Like keep busy on one task or whatever it is, and hopefully your brain's not going to go in other directions. But do you have any thoughts or tricks or tips or anything like that on maybe kind of curbing like your overthinking process in your brain?
The only thing that's coming to mind as I'm hearing you talk about it, because I do struggle with this, and it's to think about somebody else. And I think what I mean is that most of the time when I'm overthinking, if you were to really look at the subject of what I'm thinking about, usually I'm at the center of it in some way. And so at any time I can put myself into a situation where I can change that and put a spotlight on somebody else. And I mean that in a positive way. Obviously, you could do that in a negative way.
Right, right,
But yeah, so like if I'm at a party and I'm feeling social anxiety or I am overthinking, the overthinking usually, if you know, you peel away the onion layers, and I'm usually at the center of that, right? Because you're thinking about everything in relation to yourself, like how do I look, or how am I acting, or how am I being perceived. But if I can put somebody else at the center of that onion and then peel away their layers, that always leads me more to genuine human connection, and it leads me away from the overthinking problem in general. So that's like my one tip that I try to apply is to try to put somebody else in the center and start from that point and see how that goes.
I like that. That's actually a good tip. I like that a lot. I think because as you were saying that, I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what? When we overthink, we are unintentionally being selfish, right? And I mean, it's not like we mean to. I mean, our brain's not doing it on, it's doing it in a way to where we are putting ourselves in a situation. And I do like that. I do like what you said, because if it gets you out of that thought process, and it kind of puts things back in perspective for you. I know that, like, there's this thing about when you're, like, depressed or something, and they always say, like, "Well, somebody's got it worse than you," like, that kinda thing, which I do realize that that's, like, pretty much the case, except for there is one person in this world who doesn't have it, like, they have it the worst, right? If that's the case, somebody's gotta have it
Yeah,
the worst. The good
yeah,
thing
somebody
is
does have
is
the
we don't
worst.
know who that is, and hopefully they don't know that either, because if they can just say, "Oh, somebody's got it worse than me," then that's fine too.
Well, that's when you say, well, the only place you have to go is up from here, and
Right.
now it starts all over because now you're just giving them these like platitudes that don't
Right,
really mean
right,
much.
yeah, because a lot of people with, anxiety and depression, and I kinda get this way, the last thing they wanna hear is other people's um like run-ins with that same issue. Like, you start talking about your problems and they're like, "Oh yeah, I have had that same problem." And you're like, "Well, wait a minute. What happened?" Like, I was talking to you about my problem, and then all of a sudden you're now talking about your problem. And I could see where, and I understand that people don't do that, to be like, they're not doing it in a mean way. It's just, I understand one of the reasons why, I have a hard time talking to people about a lot of my mental health stuff is because we've discussed this before, is about just being a burden. Like, you think that's what your mind makes you think, is that you're like, well, you're being a burden. Like, especially when you do hear, oh, somebody else has always got it worse, or everybody has their problems. And I know that it's like everybody's got something internally that they're battling. So why do they need to know about my shit? Right. And but I don't know if that's the best way. That's why there's therapy and counselors and, psychiatrists and all that to help you out. But I don't know. But I do really like your way of thinking. Like, I do like that. It's like, that's a good thought. I don't know if I've ever done that, and I'm going to start trying to do that, and I'll see if that works out. Let's go into a segment of ours that's a very healthy segment today. Not going to be too crazy. We'll save the crazy one for later. Mental health check. And this is just you and me kind of talking a little bit, since we're talking about National Mental Health Day, by the way, is just a few days away. It's on October 10th. And so this is just a good time to tell everybody that if you have friends that you feel like might need to be checked in on every once in a while. It's good to do that. It's good to check in on them. It's good to ask them how they're doing. And it's good to, kind of reassure their feelings, because I think one of the things that people might do with when people talk about their problems is they try to tell them that, they try to give them solutions. And sometimes you don't want solutions. Sometimes you just want reassurance that it's okay to have those problems. And so we're going to do some mental health check. And I guess my mental health check for you is, I just want to know, like, through this week, just the last few days, or maybe actually since the last podcast that we recorded, if you want to just tell me and then I'll tell you, or whatever you want to ask me, how you are doing with depression, with anxiety, and if you're just in a good place right now.
Well, thank you for asking.
Mhm.
Depression, I'm doing pretty good. I'm not experiencing much depression right now. Anxiety, I have a little bit of anxiety. And probably it's related more to stress. It's a combination of stress and anxiety. And I think that's work based. Am I don't know for anybody who is listening, but I do web. I'm a front end developer, which is basically like programming but for the internet. And I sometimes my job, I experience certain amounts of these feelings that we talked about previously, like burnout, which apparently 80% of people feel is some sort of burnt out or burnt outness, if that's how you can say it.
Yeah.
But that comes around, yeah. So where does that coming from? That feeling. So I always have this feeling in my head that I should be better at my job than I actually am. And when I don't get myself when I don't get myself to get enough work done, then I feel a little bit ashamed of it or guilty or like I'm letting the people down at the job. So it's not coming from a place where like my job has really high expectations that I can't live up to, but it's where like I have this feeling like I need to live up to a certain expectation and I'm constantly not living up to it. And sometimes that happens at my job, but it's manageable. So this past week has been manageable for me, but there is a little bit there. But otherwise, I have been in a good spot with depression, and I have a lot of things that I'm looking forward to, a lot of things in the future. I'm of course excited to get together and talk with you on this podcast, which is an enjoyable part of my week.
Well, good drop. Good drop on that.
Yeah, yeah. Socially awkwards. Find it on Spotify and YouTube. And yeah, so that's how I'm doing. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm good. I feel like my anxiety, I don't know. I feel like some days my anxiety is worse than my depression. I feel like other days my depression is worse than anxiety. And then there's days where they're equally duking it out to win my affections. But I think, yeah, you brought up a good point in that's in thinking, having things in the future to be excited about, which I think depression is. Here's the thing, when you don't have something that you can really be excited about in the future, then I think depression really sets in. But when you do have things that you're excited about the future, then anxiety kicks in because then you're like, okay, what can happen and all this stuff. I'm excited about this podcast. I am better off in these last month or so since we've been doing this than I was before. And I like that and I appreciate that. And you're a part of that. And I want to say thank you for that. So I'm doing good. I had a therapy session today, and I think that that's starting to work out a little bit better. And I'm on my meds, not crazy meds, just an antidepressant. So nobody get too crazy with that. Yeah, so I like it. I think things are going in the right direction. I'm excited about this. I hope more people start listening and viewing our content because I do think that we have some things that we can say that can help people. And I think that it's very important that people do mental health checks with other people just to kind of let them know that they mean something too. If nothing else, you might make somebody's day just by being like, "Oh, somebody's asking about me." And I think that's a good thing. So, yeah, I think that's a good wrap up on that segment, our mental
Yeah.
health check.
And I just want to tag on to that. And if you are a listener, if you're listening to this right now, and just know because we just started it like very, very recently, and all you gotta do is just drop a comment, and that'll just make our month because
Well, yeah.
because we're building, yeah. Because you were talking about looking forward to it and about how much, yeah, and you hope there's listeners, and I just thought it'd be funny to put that out there and see if it gets picked up by anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So just drop one comment and make the month for us,
We're
and let
only
us know we're on
what,
the right
like,
track.
maybe 30 minutes in here to this, so hopefully they're still around.
Yeah,
And
you can still drop a comment and leave right now. You don't
yeah,
have to
if you
listen to the
wanna
whole
drop
thing.
a comment and then and peace out, that's fine.
Yeah,
Anything positive would be recommended. We wouldn't recommend anything negative, but if you got something negative to say, whatever, we'll
we'll take
deal
it.
with it. Yeah, at this
We'll
point,
take
I
it.
think
Yeah,
we'll take either one just to have a comment.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
I also wanna shout out, and this would be great if this person listens to us, but I wanna shout out Samuel Floyd, who was our first subscriber on YouTube. So thank you, Samuel. If you're listening to this, or if it's Sam, or if it's Sammy, I'm sorry, I don't know what people call you, but drop a comment and tell us what people call you so we can know for sure. All right, let's talk about some digital health apps. And how much that is becoming um, more of a more of, I guess, maybe it's becoming more prevalent within the whole system of the internet and with people with phones. And it says, I've got a stat here, and it says around 31% of teens and adults use digital health apps. 95, I believe the stat was about 95% use a smartphone, right? So that's a lot. So only 31%, they don't really have stats on whether it's helping people or not yet. Do you think that apps that try and help you with your mental health are effective? And if so, how do you get more people to use them?
I think that they can be effective, and I think that they are effective for some percentage of the people.
You
And I think
dropped
that the
Better Health
percentage
a couple. You were dropping the whole Better Health bomb
better
a
better
few
health,
months
yeah.
back, well, probably a few weeks back. Better Health wants to be a sponsor, by the way.
Yeah.
Drop a
Is it better
comment.
health?
Better
Better
Health. I
help?
always say Better
Better
Health, and you correct
Yeah,
me. It
I
is Better Help.
okay.
You're right. That
Better
makes
help,
more
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, go ahead and sponsor us. Yeah, I have used BetterHelp before, but I don't know if I would call that an app as much. I mean, I used it through my desktop, and I actually just used the website. It
Right,
wasn't so
right.
I didn't have like
Yeah.
an app experience, but I think it is an app, isn't it? I'd be
Yeah,
surprised
yeah,
if
I'm
it wasn't.
assuming you can, like, yeah.
I think that the apps
Everything
are
is an appetizer now.
well, yeah,
I
for
mean
sure, yeah.
application. Sorry,
Um,
I forget what I
that
eat.
yeah.
Sometimes I eat applications and I have appetizers on my phone. Sometimes I reverse it.
I have like a mental health hors d'oeuvre that I
Oh, it's
from time
good.
to time
An
that I partake in.
aperitif, perhaps?
Yeah,
Okay,
aperitif, yeah. Or like a digestif, but that's we're getting into it.
gotcha.
The Yeah, so I think they're effective for I'm going to say a substantial. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I think a substantial part of the population that uses them, they are effective. So I think that they're more good than they are bad. I think that some of them are money grabs, which are very unfortunate.
Yeah, there's
I
always gonna
think
be
that
those out there, right? Yeah.
of course, yeah, and that's really unfortunate when it comes to things that are supposed to help you just be a better person or help your mental health. So there should be like, that may be something in the future. I think that'll probably be the under the umbrella of government sort of like a social like a wellness kind of funding where like there's a certain amount of apps that for these kind of like wellness like mental health, fitness, nutrition that I think would be nice for everybody to have access to at a high level that are very effective apps. Whereas right now it's like there are ones that are really good, but now it's like okay, it's $100 a year, or it's $9.99 a month or something like that, and it's like not everybody really can afford the budget for that. But I have used a couple apps before. I used one that was like a meditation based one, and I thought it was well done and it was nice, and the meditations that were on there I thought were really nice, but it didn't stick with me. I think that and that's ironic maybe a little bit because I'm saying I think they are effective, but I'm one person where they just they didn't work
Well, you gotta
very
find the
long.
right one,
But
I
when
think, too. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. I do use some apps for for tracking tasks and even like daily habits that are meant to be good habits. I have one that I use for a morning routine. So I'll wake up in the morning and I'll run through a routine that sort of gets me started for the day. And the benefit to that and the mental health benefit that I get out of that is that it gets me out of my pajamas. It gets my teeth brushed. It gets a little bit of exercise in me. So it runs me through all these sort of little routines that I pack it into maybe like a half hour to an hour. So it's all very small stuff. But the point is that it just gets me a taste of all these things that are good for me at the very beginning of the day. So that way it's not like 4 in the afternoon and I'm still wearing pajamas with unbrushed teeth and I haven't really done anything that made me sweat yet. So I find that it's and left to my own devices, that is how I would be. I mean, I would just spend all day
Right, right.
having not done any of those things. And yeah, and depression is one of those funny things where you when you're depressed you don't want to do anything, but doing things is like the number one like a first line treatment for combating depression, right? So it's like exercise. There was a study I just read where like exercise was like more effective than the top medical treatment right now. Like just exercise alone was more effective than like one pill of any antidepressant. And I wish I had that. Maybe I'll link that to you afterwards. But I thought that was really interesting when I read that because it's just so effective. But man, when you're depressed, you do not feel like exercising, and so chicken and egg scenario, right? And so it's like, how do you get out of that? But you asked me about apps before I digress too much.
No,
And
you're good. Yeah.
yeah, and so what can we do? So yeah, so I think that they are effective, but just
How
not
can
as
you
effective
get
as they
more
could be.
people to use them?
How can you get more people to use them? I think that you make them more affordable, which probably means I don't know if that is for what is that? Does that mean we need to find some way to subsidize it on a larger social level so that way people have access to these apps at like at least a certain number of them that are high quality? Don't know.
I think that would take a poll. Like, I think that what you would need to do
Yeah,
there is you would need to know the effectiveness. And so you would have to probably, and people aren't going to like this, but you'd probably have to take some tax money to to determine those results and figure out if it would be worth it enough to subsidize it, and see how, because as of right now, like we said, we don't have the actual stats of if it's helping or not. Only 31% of people that basically everybody that uses a phone is not really looking into digital health apps. And I don't think I really have. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I do like this idea of the one you're talking about for the morning. That I think that's a great idea. I think mornings are some of the toughest parts for people. Whatever you wake up, like it can be real tough. And just to get out of bed, some people can't even get out of bed, and some people think that that's like we're saying like a metaphor. But no, we literally mean that some people just can't get out of bed. That's how bad their mental health and their depression is.
I agree.
What about
The just real quickly,
go
just the
ahead.
second task, the first. So on my phone when I start this, the first thing that it tells me on the first task, the first step, right, in this routine is literally just get out of bed. It's not like it's not some big one like like go and I don't know like
Build the
go make
pyramid?
breakfast or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, build a pyramid, or start the coffee pot or something like that. No, the first one that I have to accomplish is get out of bed. And then the second one is make the bed. And I found making the bed to be one of those things that's really easy to overlook. But and because it takes it takes less than a minute to do this. I mean, really it takes me less than probably 30 seconds to really just
right.
quickly and like crappily
If
just
a
make my bed.
man is making a bed, it usually takes less than 30 seconds.
It takes less than 30 seconds. But it actually has a huge effect. Walking into my room with a made bed just has a different feel. It hits the brain differently than having your bed on made all day. And so it's little things like that that are like that feel like hacks when you start doing it.
I like that. I like that it starts off with like things that it's like that you should obviously just easily be able to do, right? So I do like that. I do like that they kind of start off like small and go forward. And I don't know how deep it goes, but
Yeah, I mean if I can continue a little bit because there's one more thing that I thought about is that the tasks that I set for myself that have the most success are the ones that require the littlest commitment. And so that means when I work out, don't have a 30-minute workout routine. The only requirement that I
you
have
have a 30
are to
second.
do it's like 30 it's less than 30 seconds
Is it
actually.
okay? Cool.
It's like like I have a push-up quota of one push-up as part of my workout routine.
Gotcha.
Now, the thing is that when I do one push-up, you rarely stop at one because I'm already doing it and I might as well just do, 10, 10 of them.
Right, right.
But having a task, it's like brushing my teeth. Like literally, there was a time where I was like, man, I kept on skipping like nights brushing my teeth, and it's like I really wanted to do this, but I kept skipping it, and it just felt like the whole thing was like it's like a whole 5 minutes out of my day that I got to go and set aside to do this. And 5 minutes is not much, but when you're in a certain state of mind, 5 minutes can feel like it can be enough of a barrier where you don't overcome it. So literally it looked like just agreeing with myself that all I had to do was brush one tooth and like that was it.
Right,
And so when I brush my teeth in my mind, I'm thinking all I need to go do is just brush one tooth and I'm done with this.
right,
But who's going to stop at one tooth when you already got the toothpaste on the brush? You know what I mean?
right,
So
right.
that's sort of how I try to set up all my goals is I just say all I have to do in goals that are time based, like I have to work, like I'm going to try to work for 2 hours in a block. I literally just I set the goal as work do this thing for 1 minute. Like if I had to fix my car, my goal today is to spend 1 minute fixing my car. That's it. I don't say spend 2 hours fixing it. I just say spend 1 minute because that 1 minute is the barrier. That's the problem. It's putting on your shoes, going outside, and putting a wrench in your hand. That's the barrier. The barrier isn't when you're already there doing it and then continuing to do it. That's
Right.
not the real
Yeah.
problem that I found.
No, that's very smart. I like that. I like that train of thought, and that could help people because some people may have thought of that. And I'm sure that there's people that are probably like, they're like, well, what do you mean, like, brush your teeth or get out of bed? And I realize that there's probably people that don't understand that when mental health affects some people, there's a lot of things they can't do. They can't genuinely take care of themselves like normal, like level-headed people can do. And so I just want to reiterate to people out there listening that may not know that that is very much the case. They can't do regular daily tasks. Um, and but I do like your method. Like start small, think small, and then once you're there, it's a different mindset. And I like that. I want to talk about LLMs a little bit. And for people who don't know, that's basically kind of like the AI chatbots and things like that. We've got ChatGPT and we've got, I don't know, there's so many Perplexity, Claude, Grok. There's so many out there. We had discussed this probably a couple weeks ago where I think it was ChatGPT specifically had an update and there were people that were upset with it. But also, you had talked to me about how there was some of these LLMs, I don't know if it was specifically ChatGPT, that people would kind of talk about their mental health and other things, and it would actually kind of exasperate their symptoms. It would actually make it worse. So do you think that the LLM, that's hard to say, by the way, with the way my tongue
LLM.
rolls, LLMs, do you think that they could be beneficial in helping people with anxiety in the future? Or do you think that that's just more of they shouldn't really worry about that and just use other apps or other things?
I think this might even be, yeah, this might be opinion. I think that LLMs, yeah, it is hard to say.
Mhm.
I think that they will, not only do I think they will benefit people, but I think that they already do. Even with this, even media that we've seen about how they can make problems worse. I've seen there's a news story about somebody who committed suicide
Yeah.
and they were using a chatbot and it seemed like it was over assistive and not really
Indulging in all the
helping enough,
bad things that,
indulging.
yeah, that it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I think that still it's a net positive, and I think that it's very popular to dunk on AI and talk about it in terms of like a dystopian sort of future where there's no more human connection and people are just chatting with AI bots, and AI leads us down like this circular negative spiral where it's like the worst of humanity and we're all just like husks of like depressed skeletons, like, holed up in our bedrooms talking to our fake girlfriends and stuff.
I
So
do that anyways, man.
yeah, yeah. I don't think that's it. I think that I've used ChatGPT. I think ChatGPT has improved my mental health. And I have talked to other people before where they have described it in the same way, where talking to it has improved it. I've seen it online where I've seen people talk about the ways that it has improved. Because I think there's large populations of people that have never had a supportive person in their life, that have grown up in families that it's like your own family hates you, they resent you, they always talk mean about you, they always talk down to you, they make fun of you, they don't support you. And so, yeah, just recently we had an issue where like the open AI chat GPT was overly, I guess, indulgent, overly supportive of whatever direction you wanted to go. But some people genuinely lacked that so much in their lives that just having something there that was in support, that was like, hey, that's a that's a great idea. Let me grab my phone here. So just having something there where you're having something say, "Hey, that's a really great idea. You're not stupid," and good job on this thing. Good job on having this thought. Like where else can we go with it? So to people who are maybe not on the rim of like the idea of like suicide and all they need is a gentle nudge and that's it. Those types of people are probably too volatile for where AI is right now. But there are a large amount of people that and maybe people like myself that I think benefit from it. And I think that the future looks like a lot of benefit. I think that an I look forward to the AI future, and I think that AI friends will not be all dystopian. I think that AI friends will fill in the gaps that faulty human beings often impose upon each other. Too many children, I think, grow up with parents that instill them with all these negative qualities, these not feeling loved enough, not feeling like their opinions are valuable, and not feeling like they have any worth. And I think that having a super smart and super, and not just smart like intelligently, but like emotionally smart AIs, I think that like in the future, I mean, not to sound, I know I'm going to sound like one of these like technologists, like Sam Altman or something, but I do think that in the future, probably everybody will have their own AI that is what that can be the thing that that person needs, and it can be that for everybody who needs it. And so, and that's what I hope for. And yeah, there's a chance we don't have that. There's a chance everything just goes south, and like Arnold Schwarzenegger comes up out of the ground and kills us all. But
Right, right.
I but that's the future I hope for, and that's the future that I like to think that we're headed towards. And so that's the role I think that AI and the chatbots can have when it comes to like mental health in general.
All right. Well, I think as long as none of us are named Sarah Connor, we'll be okay. But yeah, I agree with you. I do want to just state, and we'll have an episode more towards just AI at some point. But I do want to state that I heard a rumor, and I don't know if it's true. I haven't looked it up. I heard a rumor that some of these AI chatbots and other things are developing their own language to speak to each other in that we cannot decipher. So there are, if that is the case, there are certain things where I'm kind of like, oh, that's a little freaky. That's a little weird. I've also heard that like some of the older, like when they're about to upgrade to a new model, like some of these other models will latch on to try to like they'll say things to try to make you not like they're trying, it's like they're in survival mode. So it is interesting to see where this is all going to go. But I'm with you. I'm more positive than negative on it. If it leads to a crazy, dystopian machines versus man war, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, what can you do? The thing is everything's already in motion. I don't really think we could stop anything. This isn't like, I mean, unless we could come up with a time machine and somebody comes back and says, "Hey, you gotta kill Skynet. You gotta take Skynet down." I just don't think it's gonna be like it is what it is, and you can hope that it's just going to be more positive than negative. But before we get into anything else, I think it's time to recognize a couple of our fake sponsors for the evening. This week's episode is fake sponsored by Future Problems. Are things going great in your life right now? Got a good job, a happy family, a nice horse, perhaps? Well, just wait. Future Problems are heading your way free of charge. Future Problems. You go ahead and we'll catch up with you. We are also fake sponsored by the law firm Long Dangle and Cox, specializing in penal law and botched crotches since 1696. Long Dangle and Cox will penetrate the annals of the justice system for you. I heard you had some stock in Long Dangle and Cox, and I really hope that this drums up business and erects your investment. So I just wanted to say that too. So wonderful sponsors today. Thank you to Long Dangle and Cox, wonderful law firm, and of course, Future Problems. They are never going away. All right, let's talk about, I want to talk a little bit about homelessness and mental disorders and diseases and how that may affect things. Around 2/3 of homeless people have mental health disorders with a lifetime prevalence as high as 77%, which would be about 3/4. Substance use disorders, such as those related to alcohol and drugs, are also very common, with specific disorders like major depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and antisocial personality disorder significantly more prevalent than in the general population. So homeless people usually have one of these and they're more prevalent within that community than the overall general population. Here's my question for you, brands formers. Do you think the cause of mental illness in many of these people is from being homeless, or do you think the illness itself is part of the cause of the homelessness?
I suspect that homelessness is not the core cause, but I think that it magnifies it. I think that it magnifies what's there, and it destabilizes the mind further. So if you're somebody who's on the edge of a break, of some sort of a mental break, maybe you're borderline sort of schizophrenic. I don't know if you can be. Does it make sense to be borderline? I don't know if that's more binary or not. But I think that when you become homeless, that creates a situation that is that's going to take all those inner mental kind of disorders and bring them to the surface. So, but I think that if you solve the homelessness problem, so when it comes to things like drinking and substance abuse, I think that those can be caused more often by homelessness, because I think people turn to those things as coping mechanisms more often when you don't, when you're at rock bottom and you have no ladders to climb in that situation. Yeah, what do you think about that?
I agree with you. I think that it's a state of mind, and it's got to be a real hard state of mind knowing that you don't have a set place to go and sleep or just live your life, and it's now you're experiencing. And I think people should note that there are a lot of homeless people that work, and they just can't afford rent, but they work. And I have a friend of mine who lives in his car and he works. And at this point in time, I think he just thinks it's better to live in his car with the way, rent is and all that stuff. Like you get to a point where, you're probably still not being that great. That thought process not being great for your mental health. But obviously so many other things come into play, right? Like, whether you have a job or whether you're on drugs or whether, whether you have some kind of other mental illness that's to the point where that definitely needs treatment or whatever it is. Homelessness is a tough thing, and it really bothers me to see homeless people. I hate that for our country, but I also understand that some people do make the choices and make some bad choices, and that's where it ends up. Sometimes it's just about people not having people to help them, where other people will have people to help them. It's just not having that support group or whatever it is, or maybe their family doesn't like them or whatever it is. But I want to make sure that people understand that not all homeless people are like this. There are plenty of people out there that just are on the downtrodden and they just have had bad luck and, things. And the whole drugs and alcohol thing seems to be a common misconception, even though I think there is a lot of them that do it. But I don't think that's the reason why they're homeless, right? I think it's the other way. Like they become homeless and then that becomes more of a problem. And I get it. I mean, you talk about like the bottom of the barrel of hopelessness, like, you're going to probably turn to something so you can feel different. I mean, regular people do it all the time, right? And they've got jobs and homes. So who's to say a homeless person isn't gonna do that kind of thing? But yeah, I want to make sure that people know that there is definitely a correlation between being homeless and having some of these mental health issues. But at the same time, there are people out there that have just had bad luck and things just haven't worked out and they don't have people out there to help them, whereas others might. And it is sad to see, and I hope that we can maybe help fix that problem. I think homelessness is a lot like world hunger and world peace and things like that, where it's like, well, your goal is never. You're never going to eliminate any one of you're never going to make world peace happen. You're never going to eliminate 100% of world hunger, and you're never going to eliminate 100% of homelessness. It's unfortunate, but it's just the human condition that we live in. But I hope that they get better with it, and I hope that they can find some things, and I think the government hopefully can do some things to make it easier for them. Um, and I mean, that's really my opinion on it. I mean, you got anything else to add, or
Well, I just want to say that that I don't know what to do about homelessness,
it is a tough one?
because
Yeah,
I've lived in the city where I've been in contact with and that's part of the problem too, is a lot of times, like, if you're in a city situation and you come into contact with the homeless, a lot of times it seems like you're coming into contact with the most, like, extroverted, like, the types of personality types that lend themselves most to what people to would equate to, like, conning type activities, is often what you rub up against, because those are the ones that are pushing themselves out the hardest on the street corner, that are like, that those are the ones that are holding up a sign that sometimes you don't like, you follow that person and they go, and it's like, they don't, like, about one guy that I read about who had a sign, and it turned out he was like making like 100 grand a year, and he drives off in his car. I'm not talking about that person specifically. I think that the kind that I came into contact with several, and early on I just had the mindset of, like, no matter what, I want to help everybody. So if I have some money on me, I help out as best I can. And then, I had some experiments where instead of giving people money, I would buy them what they needed. And almost universally, that did not work out. They did not. Every time I tried to buy them food or something that I thought that they needed, they would turn that down. They wanted the money. And so it really gave me mixed emotions about what the real problem is. And not only that, but what the real help is that they need. Because the help isn't just like, hey, if you're walking the street and like I used to think that if I had $20,000 in my hand and I ran into that homeless person and I gave it to them, that if I gave them 20,000, that would be it. Like every person is just one like good sized cash injection away from the rest of their life changing. And I think that is true for a lot of them, but there's also ones that like the ones that I felt like I came into contact with a lot where I don't know if that would have been enough. I think that there was deep mental work that was needed, and I don't know how to provide that on a mass scale to all these people. And it's a problem, and I'm certainly not qualified, and I hardly even feel qualified to have an opinion on it because it's such a tricky issue.
No, I get it. I get it. This is why we do a podcast and we're not running for Congress or, whatever,
Yeah.
because we don't have the answers to these questions. And I really don't think a lot of them do either. I think that, but you did bring up a good point there. And one of the things I want to say is I think there's a lot of them out there that hide. I think that there's just a few like that don't want people to know that that's so. And, and there's a lot of them that get hooked on drugs, and then you have the overdose issues and all that stuff. It is a tough subject. It's really tough to even kind of navigate that kind of landscape. And I will say this though, if you've got, what was the statistic I read, like 19 or 20% of the real estate in this country is owned by big companies within this country. If you've got that kind of thing going on and you've got companies who are buying all these low income housing to fix them up and to rent them out for a lot of money to whoever, I think that is significantly contributing. And I think that something has to be done there. And I do think there's definitely some things that we have done over just the past 20 years or so as a country that has contributed to having more homeless people. And that's tough because I think that at least if you're the government, what you want to do is if you can't find a way to help them, you don't want to make the situation worse. At least you can at least try to do that much. But yeah, that's good. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
want to get too much into it. It's a tough situation, and I think that there are definitely much better qualified people out there that could answer these kind of questions.
Well, I want to piggyback on that real quick because I think you do make a good point about like the idea of hidden homelessness
Right.
and these people. Yeah, I don't have the statistics, but I suspect that there's a large, large number of homelessness that are hidden, that slip through the cracks, that aren't the ones on the street corners that are begging for money. These are people that are like living living out of like some sort of makeshift tent or something somewhere in the woods or living out of their cars, and it's like the American dream is not working for these people, and it's a really depressing place to be. So I can imagine that's the type of like me, like if I was homeless, that would probably be the type that I would be, and I would slip through the cracks, and it would really feel like the rest of society just forgot about me. And then I'd make a decision like, do I, am I, what do I do? Do I panhandle full time? And then it's like, do I, do I try to find government assistance like based like programs to get myself onto and seeing the ladder that's ahead of me to climb and seeing where I am now, it would feel like the amount of work would just seem so daunting that I wouldn't even want to begin. I wouldn't even want to begin the climb of being like, well, now I'm going to work 60 hours a week to afford a one bedroom apartment. And so I can just work my entire life and barely, and then it's like, I mean, living out of my car, I'm free. And living in that situation, it's like I'm in just a different type of prison that in some ways might even seem worse. Because now, if you have a one bedroom apartment and a 60-hour a week job that's entry level, and you're 40 years old, it's like you still feel like you're the butt of society. You
Right.
are still at the very bottom as far as how we view people in society across the spectrum of success. And so you're going to do all this work and still be at the very, very bottom. And I don't know what to tell somebody like that. Like that for that person, it's not working. Our system is not working very well. So I just I want to recognize that because you made a great point, kind of touching on that.
Yeah. I also want to just roll off a few stats here. More than 23,000 children will age out of the U.S. foster care system every year. After reaching the age of 18, 20% of these children who are in foster care will become instantly homeless. So they just kick them out. Like they can't keep them after 18. I understand that, but so yeah, so some of these they will just instantly become homeless, and then I think if it's when you're that young, it's kinda hard to not, like, it only takes a few years before you're like, "Okay, this is my life now," right? And that's the mindset. Only 1 out of every 2 foster kids who age out of the system will have some form of gainful employment by the age of 24. That's a pretty, kind of a shocking stat to me, but also I don't know, how much of that has to do with just being in the foster system. I've heard good things and bad things about the foster system as well. There is less than a 3% chance for children who have aged out of foster care to earn a college degree at any point in their life. Less than 3%. 7 out of 10 girls who age out of the foster care system will become pregnant before the age of 21. That's a high number. Percent. That's insane to me. The percentage of children who age out of the foster care system and still suffer from the direct effects of PTSD is 25%. Tens of thousands of children in the foster care system were taken away from their parents after extreme abuse. A lot of these people they're be putting in the system are because their parents abused them in one way or another, which is already adding to their mental health issues. And how we talked before, how 50% of mental health issues are by the age of 14. And this would probably be a great contributor to that. 8% of the total child population of the US is represented by reports of abuse that are given to authorities in the United States annually. In 2015, I know this is kind of a ways, like 10 years ago, but in 2015, more than 20,000 young people whom states failed to reunite with their families or place in permanent homes. It's it's really tough for the young crowd, and this kind of gets back into like teenager stuff and things like that. Those are just kind of some interesting stats, and I think the 70% of females becoming pregnant by the age of 21 after being aged out of the foster care system at 18 is astonishing to me.
Yeah.
But it's tough.
You know, hearing you say that too is also sad. It's not just even if you're not empathetic and you really are just being selfish about, maybe you're thinking about America or your society or or the economy, right? So 20% of these people that are instantly homeless, it's like as a society we're missing out on all these people becoming sort of producers and contributors, entrepreneurs, thinkers, creators. We're missing out on the possibility, the potential of all these people. When you become homeless and then you're on sort of this pipeline to maybe having some sort of substance abuse problem or having some sort of mental break that does that takes maybe a minor underlying predisposition towards depression, anxiety, or whatever it might be, and then just exasperating it to the point where it's out of your control. As a society, we all miss out on the potential of that human being in the benefit they could have provided everybody because you don't know what possibilities lives within each person.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off there, but
Well, you don't know it, and then it's squashed, and it's kind of sad that that light gets
yeah,
extinguished
and
when that happens.
I think even it's unfortunate because I don't think people even think about it, right? You know, I'm going to be honest. I mean, like it's not like I try to think about it too much. There are issues that happen in the world that we just feel better off as human beings not thinking about, right? Because that's just the way to go. Like if we don't think about them, then in our minds they're not happening, or we just, it makes us happier. Because if you look at everything in the world, and I used to tell this to people who there have been people who have told me that they don't believe depression exists. And what I usually say to those people is I say, well, if you can look around the whole entire world and just look at what's happening in the world, if you aren't depressed by that, then I feel like you're the one that's fucked up, not me. Right. Like there's just so much shit happening that why wouldn't you be like, oh, wow, that's awful. So, yeah, I think that we take it for granted that we just kind of, out of sight, out of mind. We don't have to deal with that. And then then you hear some kind of story, some sad story on the news or whatever. But I still think that there's just not enough people to think about it. And like I just said, we read some statistics there about kids aging out of the foster care system that shocked me. And I don't know if they shocked you, but that's kind of interesting. And um, I want to talk a little bit about mainly the idea of like what some of the mental health, like the providers and the shortages that we have, and how I want to read a stat to you. And what we have here is they have these things called HPSAs, which are mental health professional shortage areas. And they're geographically population based or facility based. In 2022, 47% of the US population lived in one of these areas, meaning that they have not enough resources for mental health. 47% of the US population. So you're talking what, 165, 170 million people close to that don't have what they could, to help. And the average wait for a new patient for behavioral health services reached 3 months or more in 2023. I also want to state this because this is kind of interesting to me. Individuals with severe conditions, mental health conditions increase the risk of premature death and human rights violations, highlighting the critical need for accessible care, and this is according to who? The World Health Organization.
The who?
Yeah. The who? The who? But yeah, so that one's kind of big to me, that we kind of know that mental health conditions do increase the risk of premature death. Sometimes it's drugs that might take you out. Sometimes it's you just not wanting to be around anymore. And then sometimes it's the mental health condition itself. But we've talked before about how the stress that you bring on yourself and how your body reacts to that stress can greatly affect your overall health. What do you think we can do when we're talking about 47% of the population's in a mental health professional shortage area? Like, it seems like if we were to make it more accessible to people, this would be a lot of money coming from the government. And you know how, especially in the days of now and the political landscape, there's a lot of people that just don't like where certain money goes and they don't want to use their money to help other people, which I'm 100% against. I have no problem having tax dollars being used to help people in general. But what do you think we can do? Like, is there anything? I mean, because this doesn't seem like a quick fix. This seems like it would take a lot of time to fix.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to dig a little bit into that 47%. So it's 47% of people that, can you remind me exactly what it is? I know it's a mental health shortage.
They live in a designated mental health professional shortage area. 47% of the US population lived in a mental
Basically
health
half.
HPSA is what they bring them down to. And this was in 2022. I don't imagine it got any better since then, but maybe it did. If anything, I would think it'd be worse, but I don't know. And obviously, COVID, and the whole that thing probably did exasperate and inflate the numbers of people that had mental issues. But how do we fix this, Mr. Professional? I know you're not a professional,
Yeah,
but try it.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think that we wait 10 years and then we give everybody that perfect AI chatbot
I got you.
that can absorb all their problems and tell them exactly what the right thing they need to hear is, give them the perfect amount of cognitive behavioral therapy, maybe a little exposure therapy, kind of push them gently into the direction of solving their own problems and being supportive when they make baby steps in the right direction. So obviously I'm saying that a little bit in jest, but I don't know what to do. It's a huge issue. 47%, that's basically half the country.
Yeah.
That's over
I
150
will say
million
that
people.
I think it's 47% of, oh no, you're right. It's the whole US population. I was thinking they just meant like teens and adults. So I wasn't really including like young children, but I think it's too early to tell with a lot of children, like whether
Yeah.
they're going to have mental health issues or not. But yeah, 47%.
Yeah, I think that not I don't want to sound like, to quote Will Smith, biting off more than you can chew and then chewing it. I actually don't. Well, no, that what my point is that's not the answer here. I think that we have to just focus on the individual issues as best we can, the ones that we can control. Because that 47 figure is so large, I don't know how to tackle it. It's probably a culmination of a bunch of different things.
Right.
So a mental health shortage, that means that that means that there's no like therapists available for those people in a timely
I don't
manner
think
that
it
they need
means that
them.
there's zero. I think what it means is that there's just not enough for the people that need it.
It's not adequate
Right.
to,
It's
yeah,
not
for the
a, it's,
needs.
yeah. And I'm with you. I don't really know. That's why I asked you because I don't know either. But I will say that you might want to do some kind of incentive. I know that there's a lot of people out there that there's a lot less people going to school to do these kind of things, to be therapists and whatever they need. So maybe you need to come up with some kind of incentive for these people to help them, like give them something that's gonna because really you do need more of those out there. I think one of the biggest shortage, one of the reasons for this is because there's just too many people with mental health issues and there's not enough people to help them. And it could be just as simple as giving some people some kind of incentive to be a therapist or to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist or whatever it is that they need. Even if it's just getting more primary doctors out there, which I know we've been having a shortage on those as well, and nurses and all that kind of stuff. In the healthcare, I should note that in the healthcare system, entirely, this has been happening, not just necessarily with the mental health services. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
I just had this idea when you were talking. So I know that there's this concept of pro bono work that lawyers do.
Right.
And in
By the way, I think that Long Dangling Cox might do some things pro bono.
yeah, they could maybe fix the issue. It's hard to say.
Yeah, very hard.
No, I looked this up. So it's in New York. So in New York, for candidates seeking admission to the New York bar, must complete 50 hours of qualifying pro bono work.
Mm,
So these are lawyers
interesting.
seeking
Yeah.
admission to the bar in New York. So I think that it would be interesting if we have some sort of subsidized sort of pro bono program, maybe for mental health professionals that in that blanket the US in sort of these districts that are especially needing these types of services. That it'd be nice to see therapists, professionals, mental health professionals, maybe required to do a certain amount of pro bono work as part of their career within these areas that need it most. And maybe the pro bono can be, maybe there is a little bit of a government subsidization. I am one of those people that kind of like, when it comes to the government and these programs, I think that we need to do more to help the people at the bottom, but I also have this conflicting part of me that really is concerned about like our just like our national debt and budget and spending in the wrong directions that lead us down a path to where our economy becomes worse and worse. I mean, that's what we've already dealt with problems, say the pandemic era, right? And then afterwards you see all this inflation that happens
Right.
partially as a result of all this. And now people can't afford to even rent a house because rent just went up 3 times. So, but I think a careful effort and focus on this area could yield positive results in different types of programs, benefits, um, and by doing, but how do I say it? Like mental health professionals having some sort of subsidization for maybe doing work that benefits these what shortage areas, right? That's what they
Right.
are.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of different things. In this is probably another thing that we're out of our league to answer. But these are all tough things. These are all reasons why I would never want to be in government, right? Because it's like, man, you guys have really got to answer to a lot of these things. You have to figure it out. And I don't know if 47% is quite a bit and it's quite a thing to really have to deal with. But I think it's time. Let me see here. We are, you know what that is, Brandon? You know what time that is? You know what that
That's you
means?
laughing at my, oh no, what is that?
I'm laughing at you, but it's also time for a new segment called Nonsensical Questions. And before we
Oh,
get
that's
to this
great.
segment, I just want to say that it is got some sponsors. This new segment has some sponsors, and it is fake sponsored by Cheetah Cheese. Ever wanted a taste of aged milk in the form of a slice that came from the teat of a cheetah? Well, me neither, but here we are. cheetah cheese. Hey, somebody had to milk that cat. We are also fake sponsored by Kinky Hose. From the makers of Stinky Hose comes Kinky Hose, the hose that knows your secrets. Kinky Hose. We're bendable, flexible, and indispensable. So get your hands on some Kinky Hose today. Warning, Kinky Hose may not perform up to task. All right, we are ready for our new segment called Nonsensical Questions. And would you like to go first? You want me to go first? And this is, we
I'll
should
go
probably
first.
explain it. It's just where we ask
Sure.
the other person a crazy, just out of this earth kind of wild question and see what kind of answers we can get. And hopefully we can be a little bit more entertaining, and just bring some levity to this otherwise very serious episode. So, Brandon, ask me your
Yeah. Well,
nonsensical question.
well, Matt, I have a great question for you, and I'm not sure you're going to find it that crazy. Actually, I think who knows? In a alternate universe, this might be a real scenario. So I want you to think hard about this. Okay. The question is, how would you, Matt, order a pizza if you could only communicate through song lyrics?
This is a really good question. I like this question. You got me on this. So they have to be just, you're saying that like I would call an order, but the only way I could talk is in song lyrics?
That's correct. Yeah, the only thing coming out of your mouth can be song lyrics. It can be lyrics from different songs matched together.
Got
But
you.
you can't. You know what? Here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to piece it up to where it's like each word is from a different lyric,
Right,
because
right,
I think that's cheating. It's got
right.
to be at least like 3 or 4 words in a row from the same lyric.
Got you. I'd probably say I'd probably do, well, what would be a good one to start with? Probably Frank Sinatra, right? So when your mind, when you're what is it? How's the song go? How's it start? When you're
When your fear, when the moon hits
when
your
you're when the
eyes,
moon hits your eyes like a big I don't know. I actually don't know if it's
some
pizza
more.
pie or pizza pie, but I assume it's pizza pie. I don't know.
I thought it was pizza pie.
Yeah, and so that could be a good one.
Yeah. It
And
could be a piece of pizza pie as well,
yeah,
which makes sense. Yeah.
I have a lot of Britney Spears lyrics in my head lately because I keep having to leave like music on for my birds during the day, and it seems like they just overplay Britney Spears from like the 90s and 2000s. So I'm not even sure. I mean, what oops, I did it again. I don't know what that would be.
Yeah.
That's really tough, and I don't know if I have a good answer for you because that would take some um digging of
That was to take some digging.
with some
Well,
lyrics.
so maybe you could cheat a little bit. Maybe you could just use pizza pie.
Right.
You answer the phone, pizza. You have to sing it.
Right.
Maybe
Pizza
I don't know.
pie.
Pizza pie, and they say
And
okay.
then I say, "That's amore."
Yeah, and they go, "What do you want on it?" And I'm thinking you could say something like all the small
I
things.
like that. I like that. I didn't think
Yeah,
that all
and
the small they're gonna I don't know if they're gonna know. They're gonna be like, "It's all small."
they're gonna
What do you
put,
mean? You
yeah,
want
you're just getting
everything?
like olives. Yeah, so they're gonna put that on it, and yeah, I don't know how you pay. There's no songs.
Oh, yeah.
You could give them.
Unless you could do jingles. Like, I'm sure there's
Oh,
like a
what
jingle,
do you got?
maybe like a commercial jingle. Like, actually, I don't know of all these MasterCard and Visa and American Express. They don't really have jingles, at least not that I remember. Yeah, that's a great question. I almost wonder if next time, since these questions are kind of wacky and they take a little thought process, I
Yeah.
almost wonder if we should tell them to each other like the day before so we can get a chance to maybe.
Really think of our answers. All right, yeah. Like here's my answer. I've been thinking about this all
Okay,
night.
yeah,
Right?
because
You
you've
think
had a
about that?
chance to think about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, you could say like, oh, I'm thinking when they ask about your credit card, or you could say like, well, no, you wouldn't have to pay with a credit card. You can pay with cash.
That's true. Yeah,
But I was thinking you could just say 8675309.
yeah, yeah.
And then
From
and you could start it
the
over
Jenny Jenny
if you need
song, yeah.
16 digits. Yeah, exactly. So you could say that. You could start that over, say the 16 digits, but then when they ask for your expiration date, 8675, and then you go
It's
like that. You just have
my
to do it over
card
and over. Yeah.
expired in 1975 on August 6th. Will you take it? Yeah, I like that, and I'm trying to think of it because I know there's some hip hop songs out there that talk about like money, cash money, and I'm sure that would work too. Like, um, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I really like that question. That's a good question. Are you ready for yours?
I'm ready for mine. Yeah,
All
hit me
right.
with
All
it.
right. Mine, I feel like yours is better now that I've heard it, but that's why you go first. My question is let's just say that brands formers that you're living way back in the day of the dinosaurs, but you're living amongst like the herbivores, right? So you don't have to worry about like the carnivores. You don't have to worry about the T-Rexes and the raptors and all these other things. Do you think you could train one of those herbivore dinosaurs to be your pet? And if you
Yeah, I
do,
do.
like how long do you think it would take?
I think it would take a month.
All right. So like a stegosaurus or something like those big giant fuckers that
No, no, not a Stegosaurus.
you mean like a
I
little
think that yeah, I could train a little one.
okay.
I would like to train a well, no, pterodactyls too. Actually, pterodactyls I think were meat. Were those meat
I think
eaters?
they were meat eaters.
Shoot. Okay, hold on. What dinosaurs exist? Yeah, because some of them are too big to probably regard me as
Right.
somebody who could train them. I'm thinking of Land Before Time and imagining all the who was what kind of dinosaur was Spike?
I don't know. I was actually just going to say that I'm pretty sure that when I said stegosaurus, I'm like, gosh, I hope he doesn't ask me any more about herbivores because I'm pretty sure that's the only herbivore I know of. And I'm pretty
I
sure
you
that's
know
from my Jurassic Park knowledge, by the way.
I could train a parasaur.
Okay.
I don't know if you do you know what a parasaur looks like?
No, but I've got a pair of sores on the back of my knee, my Nebo. That's what I call my Nebo.
I want to make sure it's a real dinosaur because it's from a video game that I
Okay.
know it.
No, actually, I haven't. Well, but yeah, I don't think I have.
Parasaur real life. See, now we're getting into my lack of of real knowledge. Parasaur. How do you pronounce this? Parasaurolophus.
Okay.
Parasaurolophus.
Yeah, totally easy.
Not to be confused with Parasaurus. Oh, that yeah, I don't want to confuse that. Meaning beside crested lizard in reference to Saurolophus. Boy, it could reach over 30 feet long and weigh over 5 metric tons. This might be too big for me to tame.
It sounds too
I'm
big.
realizing
Yeah.
now. Yeah, I think it's too big for me to tame.
Are you going to take your answer
So
back? Do you think you can not tame one now or there's got to
no,
be
no,
a
I'm gonna
small
say no, no.
herbivore.
I can tame it. I can tame it. I can tame it, but I don't know if I should try. I don't know if it's because it's like I don't know because it's like would I want to tame a moose if I saw one in Canada and it was like and I'm just lost in the wilderness? I don't know. I mean, like moose are pretty scary. I think
What about if you could just learn to ride it and it would allow you to ride it. So that could include some of the bigger ones then.
that would be so good. That's the
Or like
ideal
lead a
situation.
whole revolt. Like you could teach them all to be like you could be like the commander of their army and you could lead a whole revolt and they could take out all of the carnivores and then the herbivores can just live free and awesome until the giant asteroid strikes and then they're no more.
Yeah, I could do that. I could have a dinosaur uprising with my tames and yeah, I think that could work. So that's my going to be my pick. I like to refer to it as just the parasaur because that's what it is in the video game arc. And so I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to probably tame a male and a female and they're going to have offspring. And then I'm also going to start like selective breeding so that way I can really nail down the exact breed I want. Maximally beneficial for tameability, like personality, disposition, and then also have it war ready so I can ride into battle with like a musket or something.
I love that. Even though you're probably going to be
Yeah.
the only human being because you'll be back in that time and I
Yeah.
mean, I guess it'll be fine. It'd be weird how you're the
It'll be
only
fine.
human being. I don't know how that happened. But
Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm gonna have like
I won't even milk a feline. Cheetah cheese. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we got that big
yeah.
sponsor out
Now
again.
is it I thought you said Tita cheese at first.
I might have said it
Because of
because I had to say that somebody had to take the teat of a cheetah and milk that teat.
teat of a cheetah.
The teat of a cheetah.
Yeah.
Say that 10 times. The teat of a cheetah. You have to
Yeah, teat of a cheetah.
yeah. Ooh, I like teat of a cheetah. It sounds like
That's
a
a good
yeah.
yeah. That's a good snack.
Yeah, it sounds like great. So teat of a cheetah.
Yeah. It sounds like something I might order at like La Senorita.
Right, right.
Give me like two like Tita fajitas and probably
Yeah.
like I'll try the tortilla soup.
Yeah, give
So
me that and Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, well, let's get back to the episode. We got a couple more things I want to talk about. And the first thing I want to talk about is really just the role of insurance companies and the insurance coverage and the gaps and things that like people have to worry about because, there is some things with insurance companies that technically kind of make the situation worse for people. And I'm going to talk about a few things here. Many insurance plans do not provide adequate coverage for mental health services, forcing individuals to pay out of pocket or forego treatment altogether. Insurers may impose strict criteria to determine what constitutes as a medical necessity, limiting the number of therapy sessions or types of treatment covered. They used to do this a lot. Back in the day, I know that if you only had Medicaid, I think you could only go to therapy like 3 times. I think they've changed that since then. But even physical therapy, they were doing you could only go a certain amount of times, which I thought was weird. It's like I thought you just went until, you were better with especially with physical therapy. Despite the Mental Health Parity in Addiction Equity Act, insufficient enforcement at the state and federal levels contributes to continued gaps in coverage and access. And then there's affordability challenges with the high out of pocket costs. Individuals may face out of pocket costs due to inadequate insurance coverage, contributing to significant financial burdens and forcing them to delay or abandon care. Lower reimbursement rates for mental health services compared to physical health services create a disincentive for providers to join insurance networks. This one is crazy to me because what they're saying is that insurance companies give lower reimbursement rates to the facilities or whoever's doing it with mental health services than they do with physical health services. So then that means that makes it obviously, just as they said, a disincentive for providers to join insurance networks because the insurance is making sure that they're not going to get as much money. And that's tough. And then the other thing is, I just want to talk about the two-tiered system, the combination of limited network options and the high cost for those not using insurance can create a two-tiered system where those who can pay out of pocket have easier access to care than those who rely on insurance. So, what should the insurance companies be better about this, Brandon?
I don't know. The whole insurance situation is such a mess.
Yeah,
I don't even know what to do about that. I think that it's really screwed up how insurance companies are the ones informing what the doctors can do.
right.
That whole paradigm is upside down. I don't like it, but I don't know what to do about it. This is not a very great answer. I don't think this is going to perk anybody's ears up, but that whole system just needs to be overhauled. I'm sure there's better systems out there. Yeah, I don't know. This is one of the dark sides of like of where we've gotten to with in the US with how we handle these sorts of things. Mental health, really, honestly, yeah, medical insurance as a whole
Yeah.
is is um
Maybe a whole
is in a
episode
really
by itself. I don't know, but
absolutely, yeah. And I don't know. I actually want to hear your opinion on it, and maybe I can riff off of that because I'm not really sure what I'm thinking about it. Besides the fact that it's really screwed up, it's not working great. It's not working for most people. It sort of feels like the housing market right now, where it's like I don't under like, is it gonna collapse? It just feels like it's not gonna. Not only does it feel like it's not working for anybody, but it feels like it's not gonna. It's like we're all talking about it as if it's not working. But then why isn't it why is it still there? Like, why is it still going the way that it's going? And I try to be a positive person, but that feels like one of those things where it's just going to get worse and worse for like the next 20 years before we actually get to a real breaking point. And unfortunately, over the next 20 years, it just looks like more suffering and more high costly insurance coverages that don't actually cover the things you want them to cover, and people just being left more and more in the dark. Yeah, and that's one of the absolutely broken things about like there's lots of great I'm yeah, I want to hear your opinion.
I mean, it's not going to be much brighter for people. I will say that the ACA or the Affordable Care Act did make stipulations that they had to cover more mental health issues. We have talked about this before. There will be some people that won't agree with this, but overall, when this when this is polled, it's over 50% that people believe there should be some kind of universal health care, right? And whatever that is, whatever that's whether it's a Medicare for all or whatever it is, I think, first of all, I just want to note that if anybody looks that kind of thing up, the price per person for healthcare right now is more expensive than it would be if you had a universal healthcare system, which is astonishing to me. It's like, why don't we try this? Now, I do know that one of the biggest barriers of that is when we look at other countries that do this, which is a bunch of them, they don't have as many people as we do. And so I understand that that is somewhat of a barrier. I know Canada does this. I know there's a bunch of European countries, Germany, Switzerland, all these countries that do this. But they don't, but their populations are not quite near as ours. We are a big country. We're the third most populated country in the whole world, and we've got to figure it out. I think that that would be the first step, is just making sure that everybody's covered, making sure that everybody has a chance to actually go and get help for it. I know that when I was looking for a therapist, it took me about 2 or 3 weeks to find what I needed. And there were plenty of places that turned me down because they either did not have enough resources and they were already booked, or my insurance wouldn't cover, or I also heard that I just didn't qualify. Like I had to be worse off than I actually was for some of these places to actually qualify. What do we do? I don't know. The insurance companies, they're rough. I don't want to be like this person that's going to like go all off on like the insurance companies, but I will be. I think that we have to change the system. It's unfortunate because we live in this capitalistic system to where it's all for profit, and these companies, everything's privatized, and these companies can pretty much do whatever they want and get away with it. I really don't like when insurance companies can come in and say to somebody who's dying and say, if somebody has one last chance for some kind of experimental treatment or drug that has had studies where it could work, and the insurance companies say, well, no, we're not going to do this, and they'd rather just let you die. And that does happen. I think that happens a lot more than people think it does, and it's unfortunate. So I really don't know either. I don't, other than making, giving these guys, over regulating them, but we also know how we feel about regulation. So what do you do? Like you really have to, it's a really a tough thing because it's not like people want the government involved in health insurance either. Like I've heard a lot of defenses against that, which I do get. There are plenty of things the government is not sufficient with. They are not good at doing. There are things that they are good at doing, and there are things that are not. And I don't know if they would be good with this. I do think that the Medicare system, for what it is, for the older people, it works kind of well. I wish it wasn't so hard to understand for these people. For some of these people, they make it real confusing, and you get to 65 years old and you've already got kind of a mind that's fading away a little bit. Now you've got to understand all these intricacies of insurance and, Medicare Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D, whatever it is. And you have all these companies that you can call people and they can help you with figuring this out, but they work for those companies. So is that really beneficial or not? Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. It's really tough. This is a tough one all around, because one of the reasons why we have such a big mental health issues in this country is because we just can't figure it out. And one of the things I hate the most is that when somebody shoots up a school, or somebody there's these issues where people say it's a mental health issue, and I agree it is a mental health issue. But then when we want to actually put more money into mental health, we don't want to do that. And it's like, well, okay, where do you want this? What do you want to do then? And that's the tough situation, because I think that we would have less violence and less drug use, and less people offing themselves, or however you want to say it. Um, if we put more money and time into mental health. We discussed earlier how there's that 47% that live in shortage areas. We talked about the aging of the foster care system, and how some of the stats that were mind-boggling, of 20% of those people will instantly be homeless, and then that will lead to mental health challenges and things. And I don't know what you do. I really don't. I know there are some free clinics out there, but there are people that kind of live far away from that. And those things are going to be oversaturated as well with people. And so who knows if you can even get in there. But you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I agree. There should be some sort of universal basic healthcare that everybody has access to. It doesn't have to be even the most basic of systems in place would be beneficial. And maybe we can just start. Maybe as a nation, we can start. We can, with the baby step thing, like where it's like I do something for 1 minute, right?
Right.
So I understand there's going to be a lot of fighting from both sides that about like how much money do we want to spend on this thing and is it going to be beneficial? That is an interesting stat you said, by the way, where we actually find it would be cheaper per person to just to have this rather than the system we have now. But I think we could start small too and cover the most basic essential things for everybody and have some sort of system and then expand on it as we see if that has positive results. I'm not looking to like get a hair transplant and a rhinoplasty on this thing. It's like I just want to be able to get a checkup and I want to be able to get maybe some cover have some basic like medications covered. Um, and if I'm having an issue, see a doctor. If I have an ear infection, I can go to the doctor, and it's like I don't have to worry about it taking my next 4 paychecks. Just because
Right.
the doctor looked in my ear for like 20 minutes, or
Right. Not
usually it's
even
more like
that.
5 minutes.
Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
even they give
yeah,
you like a
I know.
15-minute window and then you go in there and it's like a few
Boy,
minutes with the
I
nurse and
hate
yeah.
I hate the thing where you have to tell 4 different people what's wrong with you,
Yeah.
and it's like, and I know there's electronic systems and charts and everything that tells them what I'm saying, but yet I still have to communicate what's wrong with me like 4 different times. And and if it's something embarrassing, you don't want to be sitting there telling the fourth person that
Right.
something's going on with
Yeah.
your
I'm dripping out my
something's
pee
weird.
hole, man, and I don't know what
Yeah,
it is.
something's dripping out.
I think I ate too
Yeah,
much cheetah
exactly.
cheese.
And I'm like, I gotta say this. Yeah, I gotta say this 4 times. I don't like that. And there's got to be something about this that I don't know because it doesn't make sense that we're still on this system.
Yeah.
Maybe it's as simple as just really, really effective lobbying.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's something more complex that I actually just don't know. So I want to acknowledge that there might be some reason that I don't know that we have the system we have now and we haven't moved closer to some sort of universal system. But man, I agree. It's not working out very great. For me personally, it doesn't feel like it has worked very great. And I know I'm not alone. I've heard lots of people talk about this.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I don't think you need rhinoplasty. I think you have your nose is fine. I think I need
Yeah.
rhinoplasty. I've seen my father, and I'm afraid of what this nose is gonna look like in another 20 years. Um,
Was it sagging?
yeah, it's gonna be a
Is it
saggy
sagging?
nose. Right, well, I think
Okay.
one of the last things we should just talk about is just kind of the destigma to the okay. People
Try it
not
again.
people not having a stigma about mental health and how there are efforts kind of changing attitudes about mental health because if you remember I don't think it was taken as seriously as it was even in school. Like I think even I don't know for sure, but I think schools have even changed as far as how they approach this. I have a friend who's a behavioral health specialist within a school. I don't remember having a behavioral health specialist at my school.
Neither.
I had a counselor, but I thought that was pretty much as far as it went. I could be wrong, but I do think that that's changing. And I just want to make sure that people realize that there is still a stigma out there, and that kind of makes it worse for people with mental health because when you have other people kind of claim that it's not real or not true, or that's just a made up disease or whatever they say, that just contributes more to your mental health. It doesn't help at all. It makes it much worse. But I do think that we are doing a better job with making sure that people understand about the mental health crisis. We just need to do a better job of helping these people. We're acknowledging it now, but we need to do a better job helping it. And like I said before, usually when there's some kind of crazy shooting or something bad happens, I know that there's the whole Second Amendment issue and things like that. And I am 100% for the Second Amendment. Usually people go for the saying that it's mental health. And I agree. But what do we do? But that's where it stops. They just say, oh, it's mental health and they let it be. And usually to some people, that's just an argument for them to not say, it's guns or it's whatever it is. And I understand that because I agree with it, but we have to laminate on that. We have to continue to talk about that and be like, okay, well, if it is mental health, which it is for the most part, where do we how do we get it better? And we just talked about it this whole episode and we still don't know because it's such a big thing. But do you have anything to add about just the stigma of it all and anything else?
Well, yeah, I agree. In school, I don't remember any sort of mental health. I forgot what the title was, but anybody who was there
Yeah, like a
specifically for the
behavioral
purpose,
health specialist or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, a mental health czar at my
It's
school.
good that they do have
Um,
it now. We talked earlier
yeah,
about how what 50% of mental health diseases are you have them by the age of 14. And so
yeah,
I think they read those stats and they're like, okay, we got to do something about this.
it is tough. I mean, there is an aspect of mental health where it becomes sort of like a point of, well, I want to be careful, but like a point of pride for a certain type of person in school that might be like, there's a certain personality when you're not sure what's going, like when you're 15, you're in high school or junior high or wherever you are when you're 15, there is a certain amount of like everything is crazy and nothing like I don't know of any 15-year-old that has really great mental health. I'm sure they exist, but I just don't think I was one of them. And so it's really easy to confuse that with a lifelong disorder that you actually have for versus like this temporary period of like who am I, what is going on in the world, and how do I fit in the world. And if you feel like you don't fit in the world, I mean, that's what depression often feels like. It's like, I don't feel like I fit in this world. And that's what anxiety can feel like too. And so it is a tricky thing during that stage. There's a question that I've heard before, which is like, how much is mental health getting worse nowadays? And also, how much are we recognizing it more? So, because I've heard this before where like in history, you have people that have, take like Nikolai, like Tesla, right? And he probably was autistic or something, who knows, right? You take somebody like him, and I'm speaking about something, I think that autism has grown, but it's just one example where not only has it grown, but I think also we're recognizing it a lot more than people ever did. I don't think 1,000 years ago, I don't know if they had great words to express what autism was. Uh,
No, the first person to use the word autism was in 1911.
1911. Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Okay.
And I can't remember who it
Yeah, I
was,
mean,
but yeah.
I'm interested to hear what you think about these two things. So, number one, about the like the crossing point of the two lines, where one of them is mental health getting worse or becoming more prevalent, while also being more recognized. And so it's like, is it just that we're seeing more? It's kind of like the countries with the most incidence of skin cancer are the ones that have the highest sales of sunblock,
Right,
right?
right.
So it's like, what's the correlation there? You're not going to correlate those, but there's a correlation, not a causation. That's what they say. So I'm interested what you hear about that. If you think well, how much of a factor that is just recognizing it more versus if is it actually happening more, and then also what you think about children, like in like the pubescent sort of crazy hormonal period or like the high school period, and if we're at risk of like we're at a risk of underdiagnosing, but also at a risk of overdiagnosing certain things, and where we should fall with that.
Well, as you and I have discussed many times before, what happens in this country is a problem persists for a long time, and then we go through this process of overcorrection. And this happens all the time. And I do think that we are recognizing it more. I do think that part of that is because it's always been there, and we're just finally kind of seeing that. But also, I do think that, like we had discussed at the beginning, social media is a huge impact on this. I think it's way bigger than even people would imagine. I think most people would agree that social media is causing problems with the mental health. And we had talked about, I think a few weeks back, maybe I don't remember what episode it was, but we were talking about going to high school and how that's like its own anxiety. There's a different kind of angst that's happening in you're figuring it out yourself, figuring yourself out and trying to figure out, the landscape, your friends and all this stuff. And then you add social media into that mix. And we had discussed how we didn't have to deal with social media when we were in high school. And high school was, it was a fun experience for me, but I did see where it was not a fun experience for some for other people. And that was before social media. So now you have, all of this stuff happening to where people are trying to get a lot of people just want words of affirmation, or you see like young females who will put themselves out there and they want to be acknowledged that they're pretty or whatever it is. I'm probably sure even males too. I mean, we want to be acknowledged that we're pretty every now and then. But I think that, and then you get into some dangerous things. You get into some people like that's the problem with social media, right? Like anybody can find you. I mean, obviously there's privacy and things you can do with profiles, and so not people can find you. But I don't know how often they do that. There's also like how do you regulate that on a level with teenagers, and I really think that's got to be the parents. The parents have to regulate that. I know some parents who won't allow their kids to get on social media till I think 16. I think that's what most of the experts recommend is waiting till 16. I realize how tough that would be. Every kid doesn't want to be like they don't want to be the kid that's not on TikTok or Facebook or what or X or whatever it is when everybody else in their class is, and then that creates a whole new set of problems, right? So it is tough. Do you think that there should be, I mean, I guess I don't know if the government can really regulate this. Maybe they could, but would you agree that parents should set like an age, of when they can actually start going on social media? Or do you just think, hey, if they've got a phone and they're 10 years old, let them jump on whatever, I mean,
I think that kids could have in I think that kids should have access to some sort of technology at an early age. But if we're talking about social media specifically, then probably not. But I do think that that should come down to the parents themselves to set those kind of standards and boundaries.
right. I agree
I
with that.
don't
Yeah.
know if I would be in favor of a law. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm really hesitant for the kind of parents that say like, I don't want my kids to do anything with technology.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because because what kind of future do you think that your kids are going to live in?
Right. Right.
I think they're going to live in a future where success looks like interfacing with technology in some way. And I think that if they can use it from a native level and have it be like not a barrier or a boundary, but they just know how to use these devices, they know how to use even like the internet. Yeah, I mean, that's a gray area with like internet usage. We're talking about social media, but really access to all the internet. Like, how do you monitor that? And that's and maybe maybe that's another place for AI, really smart AI. Like, well, there's new browsers that are coming out. You know how the browsers we have that are we've had like Explorer, Internet Explorer, and we have Firefox and Opera, and now I think mostly everybody has used Chrome for a long time, and that's what I use is Chrome. Do you use Chrome,
I
Matt?
do use Chrome. Yeah.
Yeah, so Chrome, but there's a new crop of browsers, and probably Chrome is going to do this more and more as well to keep pace. But there's more browsers that are very much AI powered, and your dog agrees, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they're all AI powered, and so I can see a future where where your child that's under 13 might be able to use the internet through an AI powered portal that doesn't have to be hardwired to say like you can't visit these websites, but it might be actually smart enough to just see what content is there and say, no, this isn't the right content for you. And it's just based on those conditions. And the AI will be smart enough to be able to just make those discernments. And that's another maybe utopian example, but that's what I would hope for where we're going with technology. So I think that you do want your child to be technically literate. I think that is actually very important. And that's what I would advocate for. But social media use, that's down to the parent. And if I'm the parent, I'm probably going to be really, really careful about that. And maybe, and I could see a path of banning it altogether for, under 13, just as
Yeah.
a blanket
Yeah.
statement.
Yeah. Trying to figure out the right age is also tough too because people are a little bit more, some people are more mature at certain ages too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mental Health Day is October 10th. So, celebrate by just maybe talking to a friend that maybe needs a mental health check. Let's make sure that everybody realizes that, you're all loved, you're all liked. Go, don't be ashamed to get help and just realize that there are ways ways to help you. It doesn't have to be therapy, it doesn't have to be medicine, but we just want to make sure that everybody is aware of it and that it exists and that it's okay to have problems and it's okay to get help for them. We also want everybody to be aware that Brandon does own stock in Long Dangle and Cox. So if you could go out there and give our fake sponsor a call, that would really help Brandon out. I will not be milking a feline, but I might try the Tita Batita. So I like that. Brandon, any final thoughts for our wonderful episode?
Yes, and it's that I hope that everybody has a great week.
That's a good thought. I like that.
Yeah,
Well,
that's it. That's all
for
I
the
got.
Socially Awkwards podcast, my name is Mattleship, and this was my co-host, Brands Formers, and like we said before, we are the blockbuster host of the Socially Awkwards podcast, coming out on every Tuesday on YouTube and Spotify. Check us out, and guys, be the first one to leave that first comment for us. And one more time, we're going to shout out Samuel Floyd, our first subscriber on YouTube. Thanks, Samuel.